Welcome back to Texas Tea. I'm Roger D., where I bring on local Texas entrepreneurs and business owners to talk about their story and what makes them successful. And today's guest has had quite a journey when it comes to where he is now. Started out Houston native, ended up in the Big 12 as a defensive end for the Aggies over there in C-Stat. Went over to Arizona for a little bit in the NFL, and then he realized his true calling was to some of the most basic of needs of providing for the community in terms of nourishment from the pretty abundant sea. And he has a lot of puns from fishing that he'll probably drop throughout this show. But for me to start it off, I hope that was a pretty good hook for you guys. So today's guest talking about how he's been able to scale his business from start to finish, Chris Harrington of Lonestar Seafood. How you doing, brother?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem, man. So I know those were stolen from you, those little quips right there, but I feel like that was a decent intro when it comes to kind of pulling in the fishing puns, as you may. What do you think?
Absolutely.
Did I do okay?
Yeah, that was great. My wife is actually the queen of fish puns.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she is like way cooler than I am, and she's always dropping different fish puns on me. So
got you. So you're the dad, but she has all the dad jokes.
She, she's the queen of the seafood empire. I'm the king. She's the queen.
I got you. I got a little Atlantis thought for a second there.
Yeah.
With the trident situation.
Yes.
Do you guys have tridents at home or no?
We don't have any tridents.
Okay.
I guess that's Greek mythology.
Yeah.
But no, we're just our lives are consumed by all things seafood, and we're like super passionate about it.
Yeah, and I was. You were showing me right before you came over here that what was the fish that you were manhandling?
Yeah, so we had some amberjack show up. Got it out of Florida. Arrived this morning, and you never know exactly what you're gonna find when you get into a vat of fish. But there was 120-pound amberjack that the guys had on the table, getting ready to cut it.
Okay.
And I just couldn't help but pick it up and get a picture.
Yeah,
so.
that was like, unfortunately, extremely larger than I am because it was right around your size for the most part. Yeah. But so there's like an entire variety, and I want to get into kind of how you guys started. But like you had mentioned before that you guys are looking for premium product to bring to the market continually. And you said like they came in with this essentially, you said vat of fish.
Yeah.
How do you guys know what's kind of coming through the doors? Like you said, it was a bit of a surprise. Like that's kind of a curiosity of me right now. Just like how do you have a good understanding what's coming in and how do you pick like what original fishing group to go from and where do you start there?
Yeah, so our vision at Lonestar Seafood is to partner. So we're partnering with our vendors, we're partnering with our customers, we're partnering with our coworkers to build long-term win-win relationships. And so there's family-owned seafood businesses just like ours all across this great country with people that are working hard, that are hands-on, that are either fishermen or have relationships with fishermen. That care for our God-given natural seafood resources the right way, and so we've got relationships like that all over the country. And so when they're preparing for a vessel to land or they've just landed a vessel, we've got regular dialogue going on. And so we got an offer for some amberjack coming out of Florida. And so I placed a call, to the buyer at a retailer that we service, and I said, hey, we've got some amberjack available. It was just landed. We can have it at the warehouse Friday. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just, taking supply and matching it with demand and putting us in the middle. And so we take that fish and bring it into our facility, receive it, and then we're processing it down to fillets. packaging it for
Yeah.
distribution.
So you're saying that you contacted the buyer, and I'm just going to go a little deep into this.
Mhm.
So you already had a thought that they were in the market.
Well,
How
we
do you-
bought and sold this species before, so we've
Okay.
got regular rhythm. And
Gotcha.
so it's just, it's being in relationship. It's being in rhythm. These people that
Yeah.
we're talking to them on a daily basis. So
Yeah,
we're in relationship with each other.
Got you. I'm a big fan of like data management.
Mhm.
How do you guys? Obviously, it is front end person to person relationship, but I'm guessing it's obviously experience, but also a little data driven. How do you guys keep everything like to the cuff?
So we have at the center of our business is a software package that we helped develop.
Okay.
We were the beta, and so there really was no like ERP software for like small to medium sized businesses. And so in the seafood world, every year the industry comes together in Boston there's an annual seafood show in the spring every year. And every year I went, and there's one like premier software provider. And every year I'd go to their booth and I'd talk to them, and the $175,000 price tag, it wasn't realistic for us. We were bootstrapping a business, trying to grow it. But they ended up acquiring a smaller cloud-based company. And as soon as they did that, we got connected, and we begun an 18-month journey together to develop this software to where now it meets all of our needs. It's a full production software. So when I get that offer for amberjack, I set the market on that raw material, and then I look back at every production order that we've ever created, our amberjack fillet, and I see that one of the yields is 43%, one's 47. I'm betting on 45.
Yeah.
So I'm betting on what our cutters can produce, and I'm pricing based off of that. So the system is really at the center of the whole business. And so I'm a very systematic guy. I believe in process and technology, and so we're pretty advanced
Gotcha.
in that regard.
And it seems like, I guess, since you guys have very specialized product, specialized in terms of species that come through, I would assume you're going to get more accurate the more hulls you bring in, because you're saying you had one that you're assuming it was 47%, one was 43.
Yeah, the more production orders, the more data you have. Obviously, the more data you have, better decisions you can make. But really, at the end of the day, it comes down to the human beings. It's not machines. Now, it's like it's human beings with knives, and they're at a fillet table and they're processing. So, having them, to be trained and managed and encouraged and led, that's a big part of it.
Yeah. So it seems like you're almost like melding, which is something I don't see too often. Is you have you either have someone that goes too heavy in the paint on data and continually tries to automate, but it seems like you're trying to merge technology with purpose and with people.
Yeah, in God's economy, the thing that has the most value is the human being, and so that's as I look at developing that software, if we can draw out like a KPI, like if we can draw out the yield KPI, and we can set a target, and then we can reward based off of that and celebrate wins. If we can get everybody in the business playing some kind of game, where there's some metric that the system drives and generates, and you can set a goal, and then you can reward and encourage based off that. It switches it from trading time for money to where now I'm part of it and I'm part of the game and I'm experiencing wins.
Yeah, and then everyone takes part.
Everyone wins.
Yeah. Whenever like I hear anything about like data management, like I'm super excited about it, because like I'm kind of the same thought process of like we can utilize these edges to help make someone's job even easier. I think sometimes a lot of companies, like I mentioned, they want to think about like how can we make it so we can remove the individual. which I was recently listening to a podcast about. Amazon is bought into like driverless cars, so they could then replace that workforce in terms of that. But like, what happens when we replace everyone?
Right.
You know? So, but anyways, so I get super excited about that. So obviously you guys started not with a offshoot of a 175K program, and there's kind of a more initial start. So you mentioned Boston. You were up there. I think I read that's where you originally got introduced to the business, I think starting with lobsters.
That's right.
Which, by the way, my girlfriend is so excited that I'm talking to you because she loves lobster. So she was like, can you get us lobsters? I was like, yeah, I'm sure I can buy lobsters for you. Yeah. I'm sure they have amazing lobsters to be had.
Right.
But yeah, a little bit about how that started and all that.
Yeah. Well, when I was in Arizona, so I got drafted by the Arizona Cardinals in 2008, and I was a 6th round pick. So just kind of, lower end of the draft pool. But
I want to say you got drafted, dude.
Yeah, I did. I know. And like in hindsight, like in the moment, like, well, we'll go through the story and I'll share a little bit about that. But
I didn't even make JV baseball.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. No, it was a blessing. It was I think there's a lot of kids that grew up that like dreamt about playing in the NFL. I never did. Yeah. I just was working hard, doing what I loved. I listened to my coaches, followed their lead. I was passionate about what I was doing, and I had the opportunity. But when I was in Arizona, there was another rookie that had a neighbor that had a vacation home in Arizona. And so the Cardinals had us all staying at the Phoenix Radisson Airport. So hotel, like Dumpy Radisson Hotel right by the airport, 2 guys to a room. And he asked 2 other guys before he asked me, but he asked me, he said, hey, I've got a neighbor from back home. He's got a vacation home here. I've asked 2 other guys. They both said no, they wanted to be in town, but like if you want to come, check it out, take a look. My buddy said that I should bring a roommate. And so I went and looked at it, and it was like a brand new, like, 4-bedroom house with a swimming pool in the burbs. Like, it was really nice. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to get my stuff. And I moved in that day.
Slight upgrade from the Radisson.
Oh, slight upgrade. Well, the thing is, like, I was the only guy with my own room. The first round draft pick didn't get his own room. He had a roommate.
Oh, man.
And it happened, like, I was headed back to the airport after, like, OTAs, and I was riding with the one of the operations guys. And I was like, I asked the question, I'm like, so if it's 2 guys to a room, what if there's an odd number of guys? Who gets the extra room?
Yeah.
And he's like, well, I guess you do because you asked. I'm like, perfect. So I had my own room, so it wasn't really that bad. But this was a great upgrade. And so the home was owned by my future business partner, who was in the live lobster business. And so he'd come down and spend a week during, the summer to kind of get away, and we became friends and we talk. And I think he liked the questions that I asked. I think he saw that I had some snap. Okay. And I think he saw the way that like I lived my life with integrity, and I think he was drawn to that. And so by the second year, he was kind of watching what we were going through with the moving around in the NFL. He's like, hey, if you ever want to look at, doing something in the lobster business in Texas, I'd be open to it. So he planted a seed.
Oh, wow.
And then my 3rd season.
And what made you like interested in it? Because you said you were asking the right questions. What kind of hit that spark?
Well, I guess like, growing up, I grew up, born and raised like on the north side, Oak Forest area, from humble like means. My parents split up when I was 5, so I was raised by my dad. So it was me and my sister and my dad. And to him, education was a real priority. And so he drove us every day to St. Francis Episcopal. Okay. So he drove us across town and invested in that education. And so I got to like grow up with people like Johnny McCormick, the guy that, introduced us, and just other families that, had businesses they had built businesses that were successful. And I was just always curious, like, what is it that you do? How did you get to this point? What did it take? And so I've always just been curious. I mean, in college they asked me like, well, what do you see yourself doing in 10 years? And I always said like running my own business, like raising my kids. That was, I just always felt like I was, going to do that.
So you obviously, like you said, you were focusing on doing your best on the field, but you always in the back of your head were like, I'm gonna be a business owner. I'm gonna give back to the community.
Well, I just, I tried to keep it simple.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that God's got a plan. He's got a purpose for our lives. He's working it out. We just got to walk it out. And so that happens one step at a time.
I like that.
We
just got to walk it out.
You just got to walk it out, and trust and have faith. And, that's what I was doing. And so I was doing everything in my strength to be successful in football, but I just kept finding myself at like closed doors and not in a position to, really exceed, like to excel like I wanted to. And so I was just praying the third season. I was like, Lord, if you want me to play football, I need you to open the door. If you don't, I need you to close it. And it was the third game of that third season. I ended up tearing my ACL on like a freak play.
Yeah.
And I'm laying on the field. I'm like at complete peace because we had already like had a trip planned to go see our friends that were in the lobster business like 2 weeks later. And so we went, and I got to see Maine and Boston and
Very
see
cool.
where, all the lobsters were purchased, the dock, the facilities, the grading facilities, the supply chain, everything. And we came back, moved in with my mom, me and my adult wife, NFL player. This is a humbling experience.
I like how you really explained that. My adult wife, NFL player, moved in with mom.
Had knee surgery. And by the time that I was through the rehab, like we had landed, a great customer. I'd found a warehouse space, and we were off to the races with Lonestar Lobster.
Yeah, that's what's up, man. So you started Lonestar Lobster, not Lonestar Seafood.
Yeah, we started as Lonestar Lobster. We were a master distributor of live lobsters. My business partner had been in the lobster business for like 30 years. And so he had supply, he had logistics, he owned trucks. And so we kind of changed the supply chain for live lobsters coming into Texas. We started trucking them. Everybody else before that was flying them. But we started trucking them, and it just kind of completely changed the landscape, the live lobster business in Texas.
What do you feel like was the reason people weren't trucking before? What did you guys see that no one else saw?
Well, I think it was control over the supply chain and the ability to provide a volume of quality product that could handle it. And so it started out great. And then over the course of like 7 years, we saw changes in the lobster supply, the lobster market. But I think in 2015, we sold 1 million pounds of lobsters.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we cut out, put competitors out of business, people that had been in business for 30 years. We pretty much completely saturated the Texas market.
Oh wow.
If you bought a live lobster in 2015 or 2016, it was coming through our facility.
Yeah.
So
that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Not to roll it back too much, but I think one of the hardest things for business owners is to kind of try to knock that first door, to ask that first request. So your first customer, you didn't even have it set up yet, right? You were still rehabbing. Like, how did you go about getting your first one?
My friend that was in the lobster business, he flew down.
Okay.
Well, first off, we're in my mom's house, and I take the guest room, and I set up an office. And I just started getting up, and I just started going in there every morning and like doing quiet time and praying and journaling and reading and studying and trying to understand, the landscape. But initially, Melissa and I wanted to be in Austin.
Yeah.
Because it's just more active, more outdoor lifestyle. So my business partner flew in, and we kind of had some places that were volume buyers. We had identified some volume buyers of lobsters, like in the Houston market and the Austin market and the Dallas market. And we drove from Houston to Austin. We stayed the night. We drove to Dallas, and he flew out from Dallas, and he's like, the state is so huge. I mean, he lives in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
So I think you can get from like, so Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Vermont, like, I mean, you can go through 4 states in like 50
New Hampshire
miles.
is like Woodlands to Galveston.
It's like, I mean, it just blew his mind how
Yeah.
big the state was. And so he's like, distributing this is going to be a challenge. He sold a supermarket chain in New England, and it was, he was delivering directly to those stores every day, and that was his distribution model. But when we were driving to Austin, I noticed there was a truck coming back, a seafood truck, and that truck ended up being our first customer. So, but it was through a relationship that I got connected with a guy named Jim Gosson. He's the owner of Louisiana Foods, and that was our first customer.
Louisiana Foods. Okay.
Yeah.
And so Louisiana Foods was a distributor themselves?
They were a full line seafood distributor
Okay.
like we are now.
Okay, I got you.
And they weren't selling live lobsters. They didn't want to sell live lobsters because all anybody ever did in Texas selling lobsters was lose money.
Oh, wow.
So I had to convince them of the support that I had on the backside of the supply chain, that the model that we had developed would work. And we were successful in doing so. They tried to talk me out of it. The VP of sales, he's like, why do you want to get in the seafood business? He's like, you should go sell go sell orthopedic surgeon supply, just medical sales or something, sexier. Cause it's just, he goes, this is a tough business.
Yeah.
But I was like, this is what I want to do. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, well, if you're dead on what you want to do, it's like, there will be nothing in your way to kind of get to that end goal. But speaking of like that path, kind of rolling back when you're saying that you were asking for guidance and asking for a sign. Obviously, it was a very abrupt sign.
Right.
But I think what a lot of people don't realize is that if you try to resist, like you're gonna like not get where you want to be. And if you just accept, like you said, those doors as they open and just go through them and see, it's like life is just so much easier and so much more, I guess, not fulfilling per se, though it is fulfilling, but like once you're on the path that you're meant to be on, like it just doesn't matter because things just kind of fall out as they need to fall. And there's going to be those times where there's, I've found as well, where people are like trying to dissuade you or what have you, and you just got to kind of keep the faith and keep going.
Yeah.
But go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're absolutely right.
So you got your first client, like you said, you're basically saturating the market with lobsters.
Well, they were a much larger company than us.
Okay.
And when we looked in Houston to find warehouse space, we were very specific in what we were looking for. We were looking for 3,000 square foot of air-conditioned warehouse space with a dock-high door.
Yeah.
And in all of Houston, there was one spot available, and it was 3 doors down from Louisiana Foods.
Oh,
so we started.
Perfect.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
Well, it was meant to be.
That's so crazy.
It was right down. It was 3 doors down, and so just right off of North Post Oak and 12th Street.
And it just hit me, by the way, crazy, because when you were at the Radisson, you happen to just get that room over at that place.
Well, I asked. Well,
yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, I find myself just throughout my life, I just look up and like, I'm just in awe of like the places that God brings me and the doors that He opens. And so I'm humbled by Him. I give Him the glory and I just kind of walk through it. I keep showing up. I have to show up every day.
Of course. Yeah.
But it's an amazing journey. It's an amazing adventure, and He's brought us lots of places and done really cool things. So.
Yeah. No, I heard a quote a while back that was like, you can't ask for help to clean up your life if you don't start picking up the trash yourself.
Yeah.
So I've always kind of rung true to you got to do something. You can ask, or you can ask for guidance, but you got to do.
Right.
But so you're next to Louisiana Foods.
Yeah. No. So we started. That was 2011. I think we did $2.5 million in revenue year one.
Wow.
And it was just my wife and I. Like
That's crazy.
I had $10,000 left in the bank after the NFL run.
Okay.
And my business partner put in like $80,000. So with $90,000, we started Lone Star Lobster, and we did $2.5 million in revenue year one.
That is insane.
And then we doubled it like every year.
Oh my God.
So we went 2.5 to 5 to 7 to 9. So, you know, we didn't know anything. I'd never had a real job. Like the only job I'd ever had was being a football player.
Yeah.
You know, but I had a support network around us, and you know, we were willing to solve problems and figure things out, as well as willing to do the hard work. You know, to get the orders packed and filled, and you know, we didn't have a budget to hire and staff. I mean, it was my wife and I. It was just the two of us. But slowly over time, just reinvesting, you know, we were able to, you know, grow the business, and the Lord just keeps multiplying it, and it just keeps, you know, growing and growing.
That's crazy.
No debt, which is a huge blessing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's I feel like 90,000 to 2.5 million is the definition of bootstrapping it.
It was, and the thing is, like, we didn't know any better.
Yeah.
I mean, we just kept showing up.
Yeah.
I mean, I just remember sitting in the front office, like, you know, invoicing on QuickBooks and having to figure out item codes. And thank God my dad's a great teacher and mentor, and, you know, helped us, counseled us, you know, how to set a chart of accounts, how to, you know, build a pro forma, how to, you know, do those things. But, you know, looking back now 10 years later, it's like, man, we got like such a great educator. I've learned so much, you know, and I see things in a different perspective now.
Yeah. I mean, you get that much experience. Experience is the best teacher, right?
Right.
But you made a good point, having the right people around you, and it seems you're probably continually just asking questions.
Well, you know, solving problems,
Yeah.
building relationships, and then just continually improving. Just, you know, how can we be better? How can we be more efficient? You know, and it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of work, but it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. I mean, it never stops. It's like you're continually on an uphill, not necessarily battle, but you can never stay neutral. You just got to keep growing and keep going through process and keep bringing value.
Yeah.
So you guys grew insanely exponentially. At what point were you like, man, we need to really get a lot of staff on board? Like, what did that look like in development? And specifically kind of what you're talking about before, you had mentioned that you really wanted to create an environment where someone could, you know, really enjoy the work that they did, really feel like they were impactful. How did that philosophy start? Like, what did your first hiring employees look like? What did that all look like?
Well, I guess the first employees were like direct connections, like relationships. Like I remember I hired one of my my high school football coach, his brother, Jimmy Kirk, had just retired from the police department. We got connected, and so he was my first delivery driver. And then, you know, just it was people that we had direct connections with that, you know, conversation would come up. And I mean, we're still looking to hire, you know, the right people. You know, I think that's definitely just in the last few years, I've really improved and gotten, you know, better at, you know, being, getting myself out of the middle, you know, putting people and process in place, putting structure in place, and trying to, you know, be the leader of an organization versus, you know, a player in the game.
Yeah.
You got to be a coach.
Yeah. I find that's really hard to do, just kind of delegating, especially when you had created this from the ground up, and a lot of the things that you've done, you feel like sometimes it's like only you that can do it the best. I feel like a lot of business owners go through this. So how did you let go of some of the tasks that you feel like only you could do?
Well, systems are what helps me have peace about, letting go of different aspects of the business. So I'm a builder, and I pretty much just go from area to area to area, just building structure, creating systems, trying to implement process and define it and document it. And I just find myself doing that, and it brings peace because, I've got, an employee that, our interactions, are pretty, minimal and, can be focused on stuff other than work, because the systems just work, and, he's in his position in the business, and, I'm a system builder. That's what I do.
I got you. So you learn everything firsthand.
Yeah.
You keep retooling it, and then once you feel like there's something that's like 90% there, you create the structure.
Well, the whole time I'm creating the structure,
okay.
and I'm revising it and revising it and revising it and revising it.
Yeah.
And so I'm in the middle of, all these, different businesses and moving parts, but it's all working because the structure's there to support it.
I got you. So you're not only focusing on bringing in the right people, but you're plugging them into a process that helps them succeed.
Right. Well, our business is a blue collar business.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a 40-degree warehouse. We start at 4 a.m. It's cold. It's wet. I mean, I don't smell the best. I just came from the office. I was holding 120-pound fish, less than an hour ago. So that, it's kind of part of it. So we've had a bunch of people, come. It's $12 to $15 to $17 an hour work. These are hourly workers, for the most part in the warehouse. Now we've got office staff, we've got sales and purchasing and accounting folks, and those relationships are different than the relationships with the warehouse guys. But I just, it's still a challenge. It's still, I'm still wrestling with, leadership, middle managers that, speak truth and love, that care about people, that want to develop them and pour into them. But the fact is, the people we get, there's usually a reason why they're kind of at this income threshold. And so we're finding that, if we can create a place that they want to come to work, if we can give them opportunities to grow, both personally and professionally, working for people that care in an environment where, you feel like we had a driver today it's his week off. He took his PTO week, but he comes up and brings his daughter, because, he's just driving around and just wants to stop by. And,
it's like proud.
Well, just pride is part of it, but we spend, 40 plus hours a week together. This is our family. And, if you can make it more than just work, trading dollars for time, if you can make it about purpose and get people, looking towards that, it changes the game a bit.
Yeah. What would you say, are some key aspects of kind of like leadership and management over there that really puts emphasis on that family feeling?
Yeah. Well, I think it's our mission, vision, value statements.
Okay.
And so, I've learned over time to say the same things over and over again. And that's what I find myself repeating: mission, vision, values. Like our core values are they're on my shirt.
Yeah.
It's quality, service, and integrity. And so every new hire, I have a sit down with them and I bring them through mission, vision, values. And I say, is there anything in this that, you don't agree with? Do you have any questions about it? No one here will ever ask you to do something that violates our core values. And if they do, my door is always open. I encourage you to come and tell me. And so I think, whether it's for your family, I've got friends that, have mission statements for their family or for your business. Our mission statement at Lonestar Seafood is to glorify God as the premier supplier of quality seafood products in Texas. So that's it. That's what we're aiming to do.
I got you. So you really keep everything. The term's not standardized, but it's a clear. Everyone is on the same team. working for the same thing. And it seems to me that you also keep that open conversation ability at the top where anyone can approach you at any time.
Right. And I'm down, like, I'm on the floor. I go out in the warehouse. I've got relationships with every one of our employees.
Yeah.
You know, they see me, they know now I can't be the CEO and be doing this all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And they have to understand that. But they see how we work. They see how we are. We're hands-on, we're active, we're involved. And I think that goes a long way.
Yeah. Oh yeah, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we were actually kind of talking about offline about like disconnecting.
Mm-hmm.
When you kind of disconnect, you kind of fall away from reality in a sense, and you don't have that connection anymore. I think what I've seen is someone that can continually be both in at the ground level and also in the clouds and everything in between when it comes to business. Like you never lose touch of what's actually going on in your company. So that's super cool.
Yeah.
That's super cool.
Well, I find myself like it's like seasons,
Yeah.
You kind of, as you walk it out, you kind of go through seasons where you might be more involved in this area, and then you kind of move. I'm just constantly moving through different departments and areas in the business, just kind of working on, putting out fires, working to build structure. And it's like building a tower, it's just piece by piece and area by area.
Yeah.
And so, when you spend time in those areas, you're hands-on, you're intentional, you're focused on it, and then you're going to move away, and you're not going to be in that relationship in that area for a season, but they remember and they know that you know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, and that goes an absolutely long way.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're obviously, it seems to me you're constantly tweaking to continually grow in a very methodical way. Like you said, you're a builder. So I had an image of kind of like building that tower brick by brick by brick,
right,
making sure everything is done correctly. What do you feel like was the biggest jump or biggest change like through this whole process that seemed a little bit at the time risky and you had to push yourself through?
Well, 2015, 2016, we had great years. Our customer, Louisiana Foods, was purchased by Cisco during that time period. So we got to see them go on this growth run and then sell. But when they sold, they had a building in Stafford that they were moving out of. Cisco had bought a meat company and a seafood company, and they built them a new plant. And so the old Louisiana Foods plant was empty, was looking for an occupant, for a buyer. And so our financials were solid, 15, 16. We got approval for a loan. We made the best offer we could make on it, and we walked away, said, Lord, if it's in your will, it'll be. If it's not, it won't. And we didn't hear anything for 3 months, and then we get a phone call, and they're like, we're accepting your offer.
Oh, wow, 3 months.
Yeah. And then, after a while, afterwards, we hear the story. We get to hear the story, which is pretty cool, how God worked it out to put us in that position. But we had an opportunity to buy a facility. And so August of 2017, August of 2016, our son Mac was born. So August, we closed on the building in August. We had Mac in September. We started construction in the new facility in October. And then we bought and sold our home December. We moved New Year's Eve of 2016 to Sugarland.
Yeah.
And all that, all the construction was done on like a $250,000 construction loan.
Wow.
And so I had all this work to do, but I had this limited budget. And so I was the general contractor. I was in the middle of everything.
Yeah.
And I just hired 2 guys, and the 3 of us, like, pretty much, I spent October, November, December, like, getting the new facility ready, and then we moved in January. So that was a big jump for us. We still had to figure out how to get out of our leases. And
So you were actually running the crew. So you're doing construction yourself too?
yeah, I was there every day on site.
Yeah.
We built, it'd be cool to show you a picture, but we built, like 2 huge lobster tanks. Like we doubled our lobster storage capacity.
Oh, wow.
So, we could store 50,000 pounds of live lobsters in the Stafford facility.
That's crazy.
And so I designed and built the lobster tanks, and then we had to do a renovation in the office. But again, it's just shoestring budget, doing the best you can with the resources you have, stretching it, and then it seems like every time we do that, we always add value. Like we always end up getting a return on that investment.
How did you? So you're. It seems like you were doing 2 things at once because you still had to run the other facility.
Well, I had hired. I had a manager,
Okay.
a younger guy that I had hired that was running operations.
Mm-hmm.
My dad was there. He was working with us, kind of on the financial side. It was just the business was just stable. It was not growing. It was just, let's survive. Let's get through this.
Got you.
And so I ended up hearing about a lot of stuff, after we made the transition over, and, but we were just walking it out. We were taking the next step. I mean, we had no idea that they were going to accept the offer, but they did.
Yeah.
Was the timing great? No, it was terrible. It was really hard. But we just kept showing up and just walking it out. And, in hindsight, it was like, the business moves that we've been able to make, it wouldn't have been possible, without these sacrifices and these jumps.
Yeah. That's a pretty crazy story right there, especially since you already had a model that was clearly continually growing.
Yeah. So we doubled our storage capacity, and I spent 2017 trying to double the business. But what I found was that the live lobster trade, it was like the more pounds we sold, the more it hurt us.
How so?
So it's a live product.
Yeah.
And so you can only sell live pounds. And my business partner was my vendor. And so I had developed all kinds of programs to help offset some of that shrink, through processing. And so we were producing more and more, lobster meat, frozen tails, different ways to salvage, this inventory. But it wasn't a normal, vendor customer relationship because he was my partner. And whereas, now if I had an issue, I'd take a credit on my vendor because it's their responsibility. This was like a relationship where it was what it was, and I had to figure it out.
Right.
So we spent 2017, trying to grow to the new facility, the new capacity. And I think we did $1 million in revenue in December of 2017. And I think we netted like $13,000. And I was like, what are we doing?
Wow.
I was like, the team, we planned, we executed, we did everything in our power. I was like, I've got to do something different. And so
that's when you switched.
Well, I had a business mentor of mine, guy Fred Caldwell, who was an Aggie defensive end. He's a strong Christian, mentor of mine. We had lunch. We were just talking. He said, Chris, he goes, you got to make a move, man. He goes, it's time to make a change. And so at the Boston Seafood Show that year, I told my business partner that I was ready to part ways, that I needed to be free to change the business model, because what we were doing was it was not sustainable. And so that began, I think it was from March to July, this really like just gut-wrenching separation, with the business partner. It just got really ugly really quick. And so that was definitely one of the hardest seasons I've been through in my life, was going through that.
Yeah, so not only were you coming off a rough year, then you had to go into even darker territory to get through it. But now you're here.
And well, I mean, the thing is, like, it's looking back, you see, where God was moving, but it was hard. It was hard the whole time. But I had peace. My body I was stressed out. Like, I was under so much pressure, to turn the business and to, separate from the old partner. And, but I had peace the whole time. It was the craziest thing. And now, now that we're on the other side of it, it was like, okay, well, that was part of God's will, in bringing me through those seasons and bringing us to here now.
What kind of advice would you give? Because there's probably, like you said, you were at peace. I'm sure there are flickers of doubt.
Oh yeah.
What would your advice be to someone who's getting through a real stress situation and they're seeing potentially something that they built, like going essentially on a downward trend?
Right.
What's your advice to someone to get through that doubt?
Well, I think just to keep showing up. Don't hide from it. It's not going away. You just got to keep showing up. Be open. I think that counsel that I was open with Fred Caldwell. I reached out to him. I needed counsel, and he gave me, the best advice I could have gotten and encouraged me and helped me walk through that season. So just don't isolate. God's going to send people into your life to be in relationship with you. And, I think it's just being willing to be vulnerable, being honest with yourself, being honest with, whoever it is, you're talking to about things. That's kind of how I got through it.
Yeah. I really like what you were saying of show up and don't kind of run away.
It's not going away.
It's not going away. I found that was one of the first hurdles I had to get over when I started Eastwood, is that, like, it was very easy for me because there was no one above me to go home early, to go take off, to, like, get some sort of relief from the current situation. But like you said, it's